So I was very, very relieved, to say the least, the other day when I found out my current employer was lifting their restrictions and their mandates on masks, not only for the customers that shop with us, but for the employees that work there. I was very relieved. I've said before to you guys that I'm not a fan of the mask. I don't think they do anything for health reasons, and I think they do more harm than good. Ever since we started doing these, having these mandates and being forced to wear them, I've noticed different things about myself, such as maybe a little bit of anxiety. I'm not sure. I've never really dealt with that before. The difficulty breathing whenever you're doing things such as lifting and loading and putting forth even a little bit of effort. It's hard to breathe. Your body wants to inhale and exhale easily, and you can't do that if you're being what feels like being suffocated in the process. And so I was very happy that we've reached that milestone. It's kind of sad to even think about that. We've been doing this for maybe not over a year, almost a year. I believe we started June of last summer, and I was very relieved, very relieved. But as I was working the other day, it's sad. I'm still trying to get into the feel and being used to not having one on. I sometimes forget I reach down my pocket to pull it out and to put it back on, and I don't have it. I still catch myself when I'm walking around in front of the people who are there shopping. I still find myself thinking, oh man, I don't have one on. How are they going to look at me? How are they going to see me? What if they're still doing it? And they have the right to do that. What if they're still doing it? How are they going to look at me, and what are they going to think? I caught myself the other day asking, am I really as free as I thought I would be? Months back, whenever I was like, yes, I want to stop doing this. I'm tired of this. I want to go back to normal. I wanted it so bad, and the thought of freedom was fantastic. But now that it's been given to us, the freedom, and I use that term loosely, since the freedom has been given back to us, it doesn't feel as free. It doesn't feel as free. Why? Why is that? Well, I believe a small portion is that we've been conditioned. Even the term brainwashed might be a good one. We've been conditioned over the past year or so, give or take, with what to do and how to do it, how to conduct ourselves, how to completely change our life in order to fit what we've been told to do. Because yes, while breathing is fantastic, another big advantage of not having the mask on is that I can see someone's face. I can see their emotions better. They can see my emotions better. I can smile at them. I can hopefully brighten someone's day by just the look on my face. You can read stories, hear stories about people who are uncomfortable with going back to normal, who like wearing these protections, these these filters on their face. They like having a mask on. And I'm not just talking about the medical filter. I'm talking about the mask, wearing a mask over their face. Because I would have no doubt that if you were shy, if you were reserved, if you were timid before, this is probably what made it much worse. trying to go back to normal. Because honestly, I felt that if I was wearing a mask, I was a little more protected, not medically speaking, but emotionally. My emotions were hidden, my thoughts were hidden on my face. I wasn't as vulnerable or exposed. And that's sad to think that. And I can't imagine what it has done to some other people. I mean, we have millions of people here in the U.S. alone, millions of people. What has it done to some of them who may struggle to get back to, quote, normal? Some things that CNN tells us that we're looking at for today is coronavirus. I think we'll be looking at that for the foreseeable future. This is what they wrote about it. A U.S. intelligence report found that several researchers at China's Wuhan Institute of Virology fell ill in November 2019 and had to be hospitalized. This new detail could fuel further debate about the origins of the virus. The director of the lab has vehemently denied the report's findings, calling them a complete lie. The U.S., despite lagging vaccine interest, at least 25 states plus Washington, D.C. have now fully vaccinated at least half of their adult residents. Almost half the U.S. population has now gotten at least one shot. The benefits of more vaccinations is already obvious. The U.S. is recording some of the lowest COVID-19 metrics in roughly a year. So two things that are staggering about this is that CNN now is talking about where the virus originated from. You know, it didn't come from allegedly the wet market in China, from bats. I remember hearing that all over the place, is that it came from bats. Bats did that. And they completely debunked the idea that it could be coming from an institution of some kind. Now CNN is even saying this. Why? You know, why do some media sources suppress something, and then when it fits their agenda, it fits the bill, they let it come to the surface? Maybe they didn't have all the information, so they didn't want to speak out of line. That's fantastic. You know, I wish that more people would have that kind of common sense. But I don't believe that's what it is. I believe that again, they suppressed it, and when it fits what they want to relay, what narrative they have in mind, then they'll let it rise to the surface. And it's no doubt that the record numbers of COVID-19 are at its lowest. Well, we've been struggling and dealing with this for over a year. Yeah, you know, I tell my wife that I'm pretty sure that all of us in America have had exposure to COVID-19, whether we were asymptomatic or not. We've had exposure and we've had it. And you know what our bodies do naturally is build up immunity and antibodies to it to combat that. So it's no wonder that we are seeing record lows, because everyone's had it. You know, that rose the scale, and now it's falling because we've already had it. You know, it's funny. I don't have the numbers, but I'm sure you've heard this before. You know, whenever we looked at different states and different lockdowns that they had and different restrictions that they had, you know, there were states that had the tightest lockdowns, like New York and California, that showed a sudden increase in cases when they started lifting those restrictions. I wonder why that is. I wonder why that is. Well, because they weren't immune to it. They hadn't been exposed to it, because they weren't given the opportunity and the chance to let their bodies do what their bodies do. We deal with so much opposition in our nation, in the world. I mean, we've had opposition, you know, since the beginning of time. There's been opposition, there's been debate, there's been disagreements, there's been, I want to do one thing and you want to do something else. That's never going away. That's never going away. With that being said, though, there ought to be less opposition within the confines of a nation, of a country. America doesn't have to think the same way that Russia does. No, it's not going to work. Russia doesn't have to think the same way that Japan does. But within Japan, within Russia, within America, I believe that we should have little opposition. We're not going to get to no opposition, but we should have little opposition. We should have a general plan of what we want to accomplish, what we want to achieve, and we should fight towards that. There's a passage in the Old Testament where Ezra is talking to the people. So the Israelites have been in exile, and Ezra has been given permission to go back to Judah and rebuild there. And this is what he tells us in chapter 9, verse 12. Therefore, do not give your daughters in marriage to their sons, or take their daughters for your sons. Do not seek a treaty of friendship with them at any time, that you may be strong and eat the good things of the land, and leave to your children as an everlasting inheritance. So what is he saying there? So yes, there is differences between Old Testament and New Testament in regards to different lands, different nations, different people groups intermingling. There is differences. New Testament is clear on what Paul says, that a believer and non-believer should not intermarry, that they should not join together, because the unbeliever is going to hurt the believer and cause them to stumble. But from my knowledge, that's pretty much the extent of the New Testament. But based on the Old Testament laws, what you can see in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, it's very clear what God has told Moses and the people, that you shouldn't intermarry. That these nations around you should not be mingling with you. Your primary purpose should be to focus on God. And so why can't they intermarry? Why can't these nations mingle? Well, it's because it's along the same lines as what Paul tells us for the New Testament reasons. Is because these other nations, other countries are going to bring in their gods, bring in their traditions, bring in their culture, and it's going to ultimately take you away from God. It's going to completely uproot and destroy your focus on God. And we see that throughout the Old Testament. We see the effects of that. We see the effects whenever the Israelites tell Moses and tell their leaders, we want a king just like they have. We want to be like them. And God and other leaders tell them, no, you don't. No, you do not want that. And their response is, yes, we do. And 9 times out of 10, God gives in to what they want, even though it causes problems and hardship and struggles within their people group. God gives in to grow us, to grow them. That's how we learn. And we go on from 9:12 and to chapter 10, and the people confess their sins. And the people confess their sins, and Ezra prays and seeks God. And he tells us this, now let us make a covenant before our God to send away all these women and their children in accordance with the counsel of my Lord and of those who fear the commands of our God. Let it be done according to the law. And we skip down a few verses down to verse 15 in chapter 10, and it says, only Jonathan, son of Asahel, and Gehazi, son of Tikva, supported by Meshullam and Shabbatai, the Levite, opposed this. So we have 4 people that opposed this. Why? Why did they oppose this? Why did they oppose this? Well, they opposed it because it affected them. They didn't like what it was doing, where it was going. They liked their life and the things that they had. They liked it right where it was. They liked it right where it was. So another opposition that we face in our country is immigrants, illegal immigrants, and people who come here who aren't supposed to be here. You know, we had a huge border crisis, weeks ago, months ago. You don't hear much about it anymore. I'm assuming the same problem is still going on. You know, and the first thing that I think someone would tell Republicans, would tell conservatives, would tell Christians who might oppose this idea of just letting everyone come in as they will and as they desire, is that that's not very Christ-like. That's not very Christ-like of you to turn them away. It's not very loving, compassionate. But I would also, and then I would direct them to some of these topics that we just talked about. What makes a nation a nation? What makes a nation a nation? Well, what makes a nation is our beliefs, our foundations, our standards, our lifestyles. That's what makes a nation a nation. And if we just let anybody over and into our nation, they're going to bring who they are with them. They're going to bring what they do with them. Do I doubt the reasons they come over? No. I don't know any different because I've been here all my life. But if I wasn't here, I think I'd want to pursue here as well. I think I'd want to pursue America because land of the free, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, we compared to other places, we have no problems here. Relatively speaking, compared to other places, other people, we don't struggle here. What heck? I mean, you come over here as a citizen, non-citizen, illegal immigrant, whatever. You come over here and we take care of you. We take care of you. We have different things. Different states are offering incentives to illegal immigrants. You know, in the summer, like $15,600. I think the state of New York was doing that. We give you free money. We give you free health care. You know, I'm pretty sure they can still sign up for EBT and food support. We give you free food, free money. Then why would you not want that? Hey, we struggle in Mexico. Let's go to the U.S. and we can live happily, maybe even better than some of the people who are Americans. In 2019, approximately 58% of U.S. immigrants had private health insurance compared to 69% of the U.S. born. So again, those numbers are so close together. And 30% had public health insurance had health insurance coverage compared to 36% of U.S. born. It's crazy. 30% had private and 36 Americans had private. Since implementation of the Affordable Care Act in 2014, health insurance coverage rates improved for both U.S. born and immigrants. From 2013 to 2017, the rate of uninsured immigrants fell from 32% to 20%. And the rate for the native born fell from 12% to 7% in 2017. In 2017, the Trump administration made a number of changes to policies initiated by the ACA, including removing the individual coverage mandate, ending cost-sharing subsidies to insured, and cutting funding for Navigator programs. In 2019, the share of uninsured among the immigrant population remained at about 20%. So again, why don't we help the ones here before we reach out and try to save the world? I think we do that way too often. We neglect our own people. We neglect the homeless people who are on the street, which, again, I don't have the numbers, but is way too high. Why don't we strive to help them? Why don't we strive to get our own citizens back to work,